That. What we want to do today is I want to introduce everybody and I want to talk a little bit about what their background is and what they have brought to Vegas over the last few years. I think it's a really cool opportunity for everybody to see where digitalization and technology is going and what we're looking to partner with UNLV and the Chamber of Commerce. We have an AI and cybersecurity policy committee now, so it's a really good opportunity for members and other people who are looking to get involved in the Chamber to get involved with different elements. And this is what this is all about. It's bringing different people together to share their knowledge and wisdom. Before I do that, though, I want to introduce America First, they're our sponsor, so I appreciate them doing that for us. And Gina Maceo's coming up, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what they have to offer.
Thanks, Joe. Really appreciate everyone being here. I know I tried really hard to meet everybody in the room. I'm Gina Maceo, and I've got a couple on my team here. We have Frank Tavares in the back and Gracia Small. I don't want to say too much, but I'm just really excited about what Joe has put together. If you haven't been to the other panel series, one of the things that the credit union is very passionate about is financial literacy. And for years and years and years, we did a lot with kids in personal financial literacy. But if you didn't know, America First Credit Union, I know this is not common in the credit union space, we're very passionate about business. So when Joe was talking about bringing information and educational panels like this to the business and entrepreneurial series, I was like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. We have to be part of that. And that's really what I'm doing here. If you haven't heard of America First, well, who's heard of us, first of all? Okay, fantastic. And who's a small business owner or entrepreneur of some sort? Okay, great. Well, we've been around since 1939. Again, credit unions, not as big as some of the banks, right? But we are actually quite large for a credit union. We're the 5th largest in the U.S. We've been around since 1939, if you haven't heard of us. I know I don't look that old. We just had our 85-year anniversary, and we have about 120 branches in 5 states. And if you have been a member of a credit union sometime in your life, you might know, oh, hey, that's a great place to get a car loan, or, you know, I have my kids' account there, or whatever. And you might also know that they're not usually open to everybody. So I just want to point out that we're here in Southern Nevada. We are open to anyone in Clark County. So if you live here, work here, go to school here, do business here, volunteer, etc., you can be a member of America First. We do have 12 branches in the Valley. I've stepped out of the sales space a little bit, but I have an awesome team. Frank is our business banking specialist. Gracia is our specialist on the consumer side, handling, like if you had a company with 100 employees, let's say, she would come out and educate all your employees on financial literacy, how to save money, budget, credit, get them all signed up, and it's free. So that's one of the things about credit unions, if you didn't know, not-for-profit entity. We typically give those profits back in the form of less fees and a little bit more competitive rates. So that's really where the credit union sits. In the business space, I really would have loved if I had some more of my specialists here, but we are a #1 SBA lender in Nevada and Utah. So we have an SBA specialist, we have a merchant service specialist, we do commercial lending, all the things. If you didn't get a chance to grab some information off the table, my cards are there, Frank's are there. Really just a snapshot of what we do, and I do want to tell you, one of the things that I love to talk about is that we still have a free business checking account, which is a little bit unheard of in the banking space. So yeah, if you're getting started, small LLC, sole prop, anything like that, or if you're looking for something big like commercial or SBA, we would love to help you. Right now, there is a $150 offer. I know I just got a thing in the mail about Chase offering $500. I was like, ooh, we're not there yet, but I can offer you $150 for business banking, or even if you want to sign up your employees, we have an incentive for them that's $150 as well. That's all I'm going to say. I love to connect with other people, even if you're not interested in doing business with America First. Ladies networking, Melissa knows, very involved in those type of things. Frank's all over the Valley, Henderson Chamber, Latin Chamber, Nevada Hispanic Business Group. So I will follow up with everyone after the panel and just say hello, and if there's anything we can do for you, we'd be happy to. So thanks for being here.
So now what I want to do is introduce our panels. I'm going to start from the end and go forward. So Matthew Tillman works many different things. Open Envoy is one of his projects he's working on now. AI-based, he has products and services around the world, but he also is looking at small businesses and integrations. I thought he'd be a great aspect to this panel because he can give some insight as to what sort of solutions that not only is going on right now, but what can happen in the future. Brian Rosenberg, he works with KPMG. KPMG is a global company, but they do a lot of different things, similar to Open Envoy, but different in a lot of other ways. He can give us a little bit better understanding of the global market, but more importantly, just simply filling in gaps of things that they've done over the years, and I think it's a great opportunity to learn more about that. Raphael Kardasinski is actually the founder of Visionary NV, and what that is, it's an ecosystem that he's passionate about, which is to bring businesses that are in technology, that are startups, into an ecosystem where he can offer support. So he works closely with the Chamber, he works closely with Startup NV and other companies here in town that can help him with that. And then we also have Earl Hall, many of you know him. He actually works closely with UNLV. He owns Access AI. He's stationed here on the second floor, but he also does business around the world. He has a team back in Montreal, and he does many other things that are beyond that. And one of the backgrounds that he has is in casino gaming and R&D. So that's a really cool opportunity for us in Las Vegas to learn more about that. But one last thing I wanted to do is I wanted to introduce Trevor Parrish, and he's actually this gentleman that runs our AI and cybersecurity policy committee at the Chamber, and I think it's important that we get involved. Earl is a co-chair of that, and so there's a lot of local insight that we can share on that. So Trevor, if you want to come on up and just tell us a little bit about that. Where did he go? There it is.
Thanks, Joe. Definitely appreciate the introduction there. And hello, everybody. Yeah, as Joe said, my name is Trevor Parrish. I'm our Manager of Government Affairs for the Vegas Chamber of Commerce. And part of what I do is I help to run our policy committee series, which with the Chamber we have 10 different policy committees, with the AI and cybersecurity being the newest. But we also have policy committees ranging from federal affairs, local government, education, economic development. But again, just wanted to mention the AI and Cybersecurity Policy Committee because it is such a fast-growing industry, and we are so fortunate to have Earl Hall be the co-chair of it. And what we're working to do is to help draft the ethical AI usage language for businesses. Because what we want to do is we want to be able to use AI to help grow our businesses. But on the flip side of that is there's legislation and there's regulation. We want to get in front of the legislation before it starts getting overly regulated so that it still remains a net benefit for businesses. So that's the goal of the policy committee, and we would love to have you join us. So just a quick little word, and thank you, Joe.
So we're going to get started, and what I want to do is I want to start with a little bit of an overview, and I think it's a good subtle approach to get with Earl on this, because I think he sees the policies, he sees the ethics, and we've talked a lot about what he sees as a valuable asset to the business community, but more importantly, how do you take the element of a person and their individual thoughts and ideas and implement AI into that to make it stronger and better? So what I thought I would do is just leave it open to Earl kind of elaborate more on that.
Sure.
There's a mic, I think, right there. On there. Turn it on.
You know, I was watching the... I'm almost there, Nicole. It's 10, right? So folks, the very first thing that I'm finding, and I had the privilege of being in DC not too long ago, there's a Senator Committee on AI and the future of AI. And while speaking to that group, the very first thing that came as a surprise is most people are speaking about AI and they're completely ignorant of it. So that means that policy, processes, decisions, platforms are all being built on fear and ignorance. So I asked that group, I said, who here has ChatGPT or its equivalent on their phone? I was mind-boggled to see that there was less than 25%. How can you have an opinion on something you don't know? You can't. It's all you're doing is spreading fear and ignorance. So the call to action in that meeting to all of those very senior legislators was to download it immediately in front of me while I was standing on stage. And the 2-hour talk turned into, wow, I can do this. Wow, that just summarized a 900-page document in 40 lines. Oh, I asked this question and I got the answer back. fear turned into enthusiasm in less than 30 minutes. So why at the Chamber of Commerce we're so focused on publishing an ethical policy is not really about what's in it. What's in it is the first day of building a constitution that will have iterations for the next 20 years. The real goal of getting this ethical AI policy out and into the market is for people to say, I have to make a choice. Am I going to remain ignorant? Or am I going to embrace the future? Because once we get along in this talk this morning, you'll realize very quickly that your life without AI is inefficient, boring, and scary. Is that a fair start?
Yeah, that's great. Matthew, I have a question for you regarding that. In your experience, and you've had a few companies prior to the one you're working on now, what is it beyond AI? What are the applications that small businesses are recognizing not only are there now, but will be?
The small businesses are recognizing from AI. Yeah, so I've had a few. So between 2001-ish to 2006, I wrote software for it's called algo trading software for like Goldman Sachs and Citadel and all these hedge funds. And basically what they figured out was that with more data and with high quality data, you can have trading desks that are 10 quants, PhDs, and one trader instead of 10 traders and a quant like it was for so many years in the 90s. And so 96+% of all equities are traded by machine, not by human. So like if your buddy has a hot stock tip, they don't know what they're talking about. It's the truth of that. And the thing that was really fascinating about that is it was so amazing, right? It allowed us to transform trading generally. But then cut to 20 years later, and now that same technology is not just available behind bank walls at a tremendous cost, but now you can get that on your phone. Like your phone is more powerful than anything I worked on when I was at the bank. And I think that's the thing that's really exciting now is that we've sort of democratized access to all this stuff that you couldn't have even afforded the heating and the power on basically 5 years ago. And so it's a really exciting time. I think also what that really means for small businesses is that historically, especially in this area where so much of the business is service-based, historically, your business growth was coupled with headcount, and it is now decoupled with headcount. So your business can grow, your margins can grow exponentially while your headcount grows linearly, which allows you to be more efficient, et cetera, which is what Earl was speaking about. But it's no longer just a matter of software where you kind of hit the next button and you fill out some forms. A lot of the processes and procedures you were used to no longer need to exist. And this is great from a business owner perspective because it allows me to compete in sort of the same way that these large companies compete with people. I can compete with machines. And so that's what's really exciting right now about its impact on small to medium-sized businesses is that you basically get the same stuff we were using 20 years ago, but a whole lot cheaper, and a whole lot faster, and a whole lot better in reality.
No, that's great. That's actually one of the things that I've noticed over the years with the Chamber is when we talk to businesses, because we are a global brand, because Vegas is known around the world, as is the Chamber of Commerce, we have businesses coming frequently all over the world looking for guidance, looking for government affairs access, looking for understanding of what's going on in the ecosystem, what businesses are here now. So what I'll try to do is I'll reach out to each one of these gentlemen are members of the Chamber, but they have access to information and wisdom that we don't at the Chamber. So this is an opportunity for us to get that, so that's great. And I think one of the things that I wanted to direct at Raphael is you're kind of picking up on that, and you've been doing that, you've been a member for several years, but can you give us a little bit of an understanding of what's happening internationally and why you are what you are in terms of visionaries MV?
Yeah, so, forgot. yeah, so thank you for the question. Yes, so, as I said, right, the AI is changing how we make business. As Matthew said, that we can compete, small businesses can compete not only thanks to AI, but digitalization, technology as a whole. They can compete with, small companies can compete with large large behemoths and also international businesses, right? I work mostly with businesses from Europe, but want to come here. I do like a soft landing projects with them. I help them because that was my way, right? I came here from Poland in 2019. My original business was in medical technology. When I got involved in the community here, I started to grow that company. I had an exit from that company, and I started to do other different businesses, one of which is revolutionized, but Joe mentioned. And so I've been on that road. I've been on that road coming here and experiencing the economy here, experiencing the possibilities here. And we have a lot of companies that want to come here. We have even like from Poland, we have government programs that are bringing companies here, and they are bringing a lot of technology, a lot of cool technology. Many of them is based on AI. And Aaron knows that the engineers in Poland knows they are like one of the best in the world, and we have a lot of companies that are bringing new technology here. Like one of example is like the name of the company is Blue Box, and the idea is it's like your AI, but not on your phone. It's your AI only for you, your personal AI, but it's not connected to the internet. Because if you are using ChatGPT, Copilot, and things like this, your data is not private, right? You are sending that data to Microsoft, OpenAI, and things like this. But if you are like a lawyer company, like legal company, you want to protect your data. So then you can have this kind of like a built-in blue box, but it's set in your company, and it's only for you. And you can talk with it, it can help you process much more data, a lot of data. You can imagine like an application that I recently thought of. Let's say you are a contractor, you are building a home for someone. And at the end, when you get the home, you have this like big set of documents, right? With, what's in it, what's the warranty for it, where should I call when my microwave breaks, where should I call when my oven breaks, and all of this can be put into AI, and instead of having like this, even on your, in your drawers, right? A lot of like manuals, a lot of like warranty cards. All of that can be fed into the AI, and you can just ask, like, where should I go? Who should I call to fix my microwave? Who should I call to fix my, the plug in my living room? And all that information is given to you. Normally, you would have to browse through all this documentation, but now AI can do it for you very effortlessly. And this is how, as El said, we soon will not be able to live without AI help because we'll be so ineffective, and there will be others that are using AI, and they are much more effective. So I think it's like as I am an IT person, my PhD is computer science. I'm like a AI skeptic because of all the movies we watched about AI, right? But I think this is like to the point that this is like a train, but we cannot stop. It's something that we can, as I said, decide if we want to jump on the train or we just can be left alone. And the world sees this, right? And the other companies see this, and we are living in the biggest economical country, the best in the sense of quality of living, in my opinion, of someone who travels a lot, and others appreciate that. They want to come here, they want to help us, they want to get on our train. And this idea of creating, this set of rules, this constitution for AI, I think that's very important, and we should do it. And it will be a lot of iteration to reach there, but it's important not to be left alone.
Great. Brian, a question for you about KPMG. Now, KPMG's had a footprint in many places, but Vegas recently, within the last 3-4 years, but it's growing fast. What was it about Las Vegas that made sense for KPMG? Did they recognize this is happening and it needs to be enhanced and worked with?
Well, KPMG is a global firm. There's offices in many places, and here we've had a gaming practice and and we want to expand that. And KPMG has audit and tax, which is probably what it's known for. There's also one of the largest advisory firms in the world, and I work with people in our offices all across the country and around the world. You know, picking up on the AI topic, and you know, I kind of wanted to pick up on something that Earl said because I think it's really important. That really need to think of this as a transformational technology in the way we do everything. The same way that the internet was, the same way the mobile phone was. It's probably the best comparisons I can come up with in terms of the impact, and that it's really important that you just begin to use it. And as we're talking to clients about different ways to use AI, you're finding more and more different use cases and possibilities in ways the technology applies. But I think I saw when you asked how many people here had a small business, and almost everybody raised their hand. And so just thinking about how it applies to this audience, you know, when I remember when ChatGPT first became a big thing, you know, a little over a year ago, I was on an airplane sitting next to somebody who was using it, and I asked them what they were doing, and they said that they were using it to write job descriptions. So they owned a business, they hated writing job descriptions, and so they had ChatGPT doing it for them, and I was talking to them about how that worked and everything. Very basic use of that technology, but to Earl's point, you start by using it and doing something with it. And incorporating it slowly into your business, into your life. But I think it also can operate as an equalizer. As small businesses, it's a technology that enables you to have capabilities that previously you wouldn't have been able to afford, you wouldn't have been able to access. And so in working with the customers with their AI strategy, I see a lot of opportunity to do really cool, innovative things, but there's an incredible application to just make the jobs that you're already doing easy, save you time. To Matt's point, be able to do more with less, because resources are a challenge for every organization. And I like what you said as well about that you don't measure success by headcount, right? So using AI technology, whether you're a small business, whether you're a large corporate entity, doesn't matter. It's about each individual finding ways to leverage these tools to make their lives better. And really think about that, you know, could you do the job you have today without the internet? Could you do the job you have today without the mobile phone? Probably that's hard to picture. And I think that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll feel the same way about AI and these emerging technologies. It'll just be a part of everything that you do.
Earl, you had something? Yeah.
Raphael touched on something that I think I'd like to hammer the nail a little bit harder, because I don't know Blue Box, but I will in an hour and a half. If you're in a small business, what's your largest threat besides cash flow? It's humans. If you have a key team member that leaves, are all the processes documented? Is all the organizational memory recorded somewhere? The answer 90% of the time is no. I run a small business. There's only like 50 of us, give or take. If a key member leaves, we're down on one knee for a while. I know that because it's happened throughout times. Our job as a CEO or as a leader is to build people. When you build people, they graduate and they leave. It's normal, and you have to celebrate that. If you don't, you have the wrong attitude as a leader. But how do you protect your organization from the expertise bleed? I'm going to use a word that's called a private GBT. A GBT is just an app, by the way. We got to get rid of using those buzzwords. They're toxic. At Access, where I hang out, we have a private GBT. It's our own database. It's in-house. It's not public. But believe it or not, because we are a little bit crazy, we've uploaded every email, every Word document, every Skype, if you remember that from the 1960s, every Skype conversation, everything that we could find from the entire history of the company is in this database. and we took our 6 most involved and expert people, and we taught this piece of software what was a good answer and what was a bad answer. It was a very costly, if you hear that word, it was a costly experience for 6 months to be clicking on thumbs up or thumbs down and thumbs down why. 6 months later, nobody can beat it. It really irks me that when somebody asks me a question and I give the answer, and the software gives a better answer than me. It really irks me. The thing is we've pooled every piece of organizational knowledge for $15 per user per month into this software to guarantee that whoever we lose will never ever go down on one knee ever again. That is probably the biggest call to action I could ever give to a small business, because I lost my CFO last year to build his own organization. And 1, I'm still grieving. I am. But 2, I'm still combing through the forest of Google Sheets to figure out how to do things. Until we got everything into this piece of software, now I can ask it all kinds of crazy accounting questions, and I'm getting answers that our auditors like. Please think about your organizational memory, because the tools exist now in the AI world to protect you, your shareholders, and your employees from critical loss.
Well, that's great. Appreciate that. I'm going to open this up to anyone here, because you each touch an international element. But one of the things that's really big, that's being talked about on a global level, is tech diplomacy and digital diplomacy. Policies are being decided on around the world, and in many cases, certain technologies and certain things are looking to be unified, looking as one protocol. And this is something that's kind of, nobody really knows where it's going, but there's people that are coming together to advise on that. But I guess the real question is, how is the world, if you could answer, look at how it needs to be applied in Europe, how it needs to be applied in Asia, how does it need to be applied in the United States, and is there commonality, and is there acceptance of something like that? Who wants to take that one? You all are experts at it. I know
We all ran away from a question on Europe, basically, is what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's some countries that are going to be, they're going to operate with fear, and there's some countries that are going to operate with greed, and the implementations of which, so if you look at the European Union as an example, just in terms of document processing, which we both make a good deal of money on, in reality, Europe has a single standard for document processing for spend across the entire European Union, and 15 different implementations. And so the truth is there tends to be a specification-driven top-down in these regions. And then the implementations vary so greatly, it generates a lot of economic opportunity for the people in this room, not just us, but the people in this room, because of how they choose to implement those decisions. And so in terms of adoption, I think you have to be very flexible if you're talking about going abroad, and you have to thrive in the ambiguity created. In Mexico alone, as an example, to process an invoice legally in Mexico, it has to go through a government system. So your supplier has to send it to a government system has to validate it, sends it to the customer. The customer finds errors in that validation constantly, because the government implemented a subset of required fields to even be able to pay their thing. So we see that not just as an issue with spend management. We also see that with AI it's much more complicated. You can't just say, like, you need a totals line and line items. You have to say, we need this thing to be trained on data sets where you have copyright access to it. We need this to be trained in a way that it doesn't leak data to third-party sub-processors, is what they're called. So if you want to see if the AI solution is actually artificial intelligence, just look at their sub-processor list and see if they're sending all your data to the Philippines. That's one quick trick you can make. But this is sort of the challenge, is that they're trying to regulate something before it has a properly defined pattern, and that creates a playing field for everyone, whether or not it's level or not is up for debate. But it does create a set of structure of rules that probably add more volatility in reality than what they were trying to do. So I think these are sort of the challenges that you run into when you think about international. Like in China, it's not a free-for-all. In Southeast Asia, total free-for-all right now. In the US, total free-for-all. And we're, by the way, the only country actually positioned well to solve this problem. So I think it's really, really difficult. You just have to be able to thrive in ambiguity of this regulation.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. Everybody here, Matt, okay? Just,
My
so you don't
screaming.
use
Sorry, I just couldn't handle
I know the back here. Yeah, but you know, one of the challenges with that internationally is going to be discrepancy between what happens in one country versus what happens in another country. When you have the reality that technology has crossed borders in a way that we've never really had before. I mean, globalization has really been accelerated by technology. So if you are Google or Meta or Microsoft, you might have to follow different rules in the EU than you have to follow in the US, than you have to follow in Asia. And this is going to be one of the challenges around regulation of AI, as well as any other technology, is that if there's differences, then people aren't going to follow the rules consistently. And this applies as well when you look at cybersecurity, which is one of the biggest challenges that our industry faces, and sadly, an area that AI is going to make the hackers more effective, because the technology will help to make them smarter as well. And when you have this big discrepancy and you have bad actors, then it is much more challenging for these regulations to have teeth and meaning. What Earl was saying earlier, that you start off with that ethical basis. What is right? But understand the technology is changing fast, and as a result, we have to update everything quickly. Unfortunately, governments can be slow to do those updates and have a hard time keeping up with the pace at which technology changes. And that's something that we're going to have to do better. The royal we here are going to have to do better, is to figure out how to keep up with technology change, because AI is going to accelerate the rate of that change in the future.
Raphael, did you have something?
No, it's
Okay. Yes. From your experience and the things that you've seen, and not just from home, but in other places that you've talked to businesses coming in, are they coming with those kind of solutions? Are they coming with the challenges? Because I've talked to them, and they oftentimes aren't quite sure how to conduct business here, and they're looking for guidance initially. Is that one of the challenges, that they do business a certain way and they need to learn how to do it here?
Yes, like I'll also try without the mic, it will be easier. Yes, like for international businesses, we have to understand what other people think differently, right? Especially in different countries, we are used to doing business differently. We are used to the customer habits are different. So we are very often the first step for them, for companies that want to come here, is to understand the difference, understand the way of doing business here, the way of integrating here. And it's like with every business, we are coming here for customers, right? We are coming here to grow. We are coming here to find new users, new partners, new distributors, because it's one of the biggest markets out there. So it's natural they will come here and they have to be competitive, because our market is very competitive. So they are figuring out new technologies, new way of doing things, just to be competitive, just to be better on the market. So it's in a sense worse for our homegrown company, but we have more competition. But competition always spurs growth. And as you said, the issue is to know how to do business here, how to integrate it. That's one of the. That's why everyone who's doing this kind of consultancy or help, they call it soft landing. So we want to make it softer for them, because very often they have no idea how different European or Asian market is from US market. From my experience as a medtech company, before I had any distributor in the US, I had distributors in over 88 countries around the world, like Asia, Africa, even South America. But US was always very specific, very different. And for all companies coming here from other countries, they need to understand this very quickly. If you have to fail, you should have to fail quickly, right? without too much investing. And that's why this kind of education, right, and understanding and talking with the community is very important to notice those slightly different specific things that we have here.
That's a great point. It actually segues to what I wanted to ask Earl. Earl, from your point of view, in being in different countries and having worn different hats, in marketing it's buying behavior. From an adoption of digital advertising and an adoption of AI and adoption of that in terms of how it applies to the United States, what do you see changing overseas that's coming here that's impacting it, that can help small businesses, that can accelerate that learning curve?
Am I good without a mic? Theoretically, yes. My army career gave me a voice. First thing, there's more countries than you would ever believe on this planet that have low or no regulation. In other words, they don't care or they're ignorant of the fact that the data is in the cloud. Where's the cloud? Is the cloud Ireland or is it California? So the very first thing is, when you come here, the first wall you hit is intellectual property first, regulation second. There are a lot of places in this world where I do business in like 43 countries where they don't even ask those questions. But the thing is up until ChatGPT and Copilot showed up so that you can benchmark one off the other, every time I put boots on the ground in a new place, it's all about what are the data privacy laws? What are the regulations? What are the policies? And because of the fact that when you're using paid applications, it's actually scrubbing the web in real time to give you the latest policy, rules, and regulations. Like you could expect Macau to be crazy on data privacy. I know we're being filmed. They are crazy on data privacy. They have the exact same data privacy rules as the state of Nevada. They're a mirror. So whatever I could answer would be incompetent to give you the answer that I want to give from here, is that wherever you project to do business, it's a very easy GBT search. I never trust one app, I'll always benchmark two. And if the answer comes back skewed, then I'll go to a third to see if I can get a correlation. But the thing is you have to do your homework because you will run into subtleties. There are some countries that you have to have a local entity, whether it be a distributor or an agent or some local presence. If not, you're not even allowed to transact. Mexico is hyper complex. The data can't leave Mexico. It has to touch base in Mexico first, and then you're allowed to mirror it to the cloud. So I could end by saying we're in a very simple world in the last 15 months where there are apps like ChatGPT, the paid version, and Microsoft Copilot that can do hundreds of hours of Google searches for you in minutes. Please do that. But
Great.
I know it's always going to repeat,
Yeah.
but the thing is we live now in a world of exceptions. The rules have more exceptions than they have rules, so you need a power tool.
No, I think what you're hitting on is kind of what comes to my mind is that small businesses are just like, keep it simple. What do I need to know about this stuff that actually makes sense? And Matt, you touched on something earlier that the solutions you're coming up with comes from 20 years ago when you were working in the financial world, and you're starting to see the graduation or the evolution of these ideas. And it goes back to the buying behavior thing. It goes back to human behavior. That's one thing that doesn't change. I mean, the knowledge might change. The appreciation for what ChatGPT can do and how it can help my businesses there. But what are you seeing as far as industry sectors, or what are you seeing about how the applications can benefit businesses that maybe they're not aware of yet, but you can see in maybe 2 or 3 years it will be?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I initially did not expect like government contractors to latch onto this as fast as they did. So some of our customers are DoD contractors. They make parts for jets. And you wouldn't have expected companies making parts for jets, who may be a material sciences company that's around for 125 years or something like that, to really adopt this type of stuff as quickly as they did. And I think the way that I think about it is there are two types of companies. There are types of companies that want to grow, and there are companies that say they want to grow, but in reality just want to sort of maintain. And I think you have to be really honest as to which type of company you are. Are you a company that's like, built revenue along with headcount over time, or are you a company that's very serious about money and you're looking to exploit new technology to increase margins, increase growth rates, whatever it is, and look at that outcome and work backwards. And the shocking thing is, the companies that are looking for that outcome are companies that I did not expect. I really did not expect. I expected tech companies to be forward-leaning. I expected financial services companies to, having reaped all the benefits from electronic trading however many years ago, 25 years ago, to be the first people in it. I expected healthcare companies to realize they would operate on tiny margins and need to do it. But it turns out it's a lot of like mid-market manufacturers who have had a lot of labor turnover, have had a lot of team turnover, and need to eliminate that, to Earl's point earlier, to make sure that the person leaving doesn't take all the data with them and all the information with them. So I think that's the thing that we're seeing that was a little bit more surprising than I expected. I expected like technical people like me to want to do this. I didn't expect, your contract manufacturers based in Indonesia to be the first ones to sign up. That was a bit shocking.
One of the things that I've learned, and just learning some of the organizations that the Chamber works with, whether it's SBDC or whether it's SCORE, there's many programs out there that the government runs, but also NGOs. And one of the things that has come to my mind is that business plans have changed. I mean, the way you write a business plan today, 5 years ago, was different. 5 years before that was different. And I would imagine AI, and I would imagine this technology is going to change how you do business and how you pivot and how you look at what business plan looks like. So I look at those organizations and think, how do we accelerate the understanding? How do we get participants in that ecosystem that can help small businesses create a business but maximize their ability to do it immediately? And I was wondering if anybody wanted to add something to that, because that's one thing, being, working with a lot of small businesses at the Chamber, that's immediately comes to mind, thinking, okay, there's this AI thing out there, but at the same time, how do we make it relevant so that small businesses can actually build it into the business plan immediately?
I think that part of it is kind of a consistent theme of all this. Whether it's AI or not, the tools should be about streamlining work and taking away what takes up your time, right? And freeing up time for you to be able to do the things that is, hearing Earl speak last time, that humans are so good at. The creative things, the making business deals, taking a lot of that work that just takes your time. And what Matt's company does, I'm very familiar with, and is a good example of that, takes time-consuming tasks and automates them. And all these technologies ultimately come down to some variation of that concept. You have limited time. So how can you leverage technology, whether it be AI, whether it be robotic process automation, whether it be something else, in order to free up that time you can spend it doing things that are more value-added. And I also want to pick up on the data point that was mentioned in a couple parts of the conversation as well. I think when Earl was talking about like checking a couple different sources for the answers to the questions, I think it's an important element. I think that one of the next frontiers of this discussion is going to be data sources, because whether you're looking at analytics, whether you're looking at a generative AI, the data that it pulls from is so essential to the result that you're going to get. Data quality is going to be more important than ever before, and most people have pretty poor quality data. It's a major challenge that we have, and I do think that there's going to be, where we're going to see innovation in AI from the standpoint of technology, of making smarter queries and better technology to drive all of that. I think the data is going to be just important. People putting out large language models for particular industries. I've done a lot of work in healthcare, And one of the big concerns in the healthcare industry is around the quality of the data that you're drawing from. So one of the challenges in the industry is people go to WebMD and they type in they have a headache and whatever comes up, they're like, okay, I'm going to self-treat, I'm not going to see a doctor. This is one of the challenges the industry has. Now you might have something that's able to come up with a different conclusion. Maybe it's a better conclusion, maybe it's not. Depends on the data that it's drawing from. It's going to be a really important element of it. We've done a lot of work in the healthcare industry to do things like create shareable medical records and make that information available and transferable so that one hospital can see how you were treated at a previous hospital. There's an incredible amount of work going into that. And all of that data, though, is still very decentralized. It's still not a common source of that data. There's still work to be done there. And mentioned that I think that as a small business, that's it. I think you really need to value data, to part of what Earl was saying, the data that you have. And that's probably not a bad business to get into as well, is in the business of collecting, scrubbing, making sure the data is high enough quality and making it available to these kinds of solutions.
Yeah, small businesses have a low volume of incredibly valuable data to them. They find oftentimes that it's not valuable to others. And so I think in terms of how you partner, you have to think about that in terms of your direct partnerships, your customers. You really have to start to think about how to use it, how valuable is it to you, what outcome are you looking to achieve with it, such as sharing patient records. Really important to think about that. Even if you're like a 5-person company, it's become very important to start thinking about that now and doing the work required.
Yeah, what digitalization means to you might be different a little bit based on your kind of business. But one of the things that I did locally, working with UMC, implemented a medical record system that if any of you have used MyChart, might be on some of your phones. If you have appointments, you can set appointments. And you can check lab results and that sort of thing. That kind of functionality is really important, and I think it's expected. In that, I don't know about you, but when I go to look for a service provider, I want a service provider who I can communicate with online, who I can set appointments with online. If I have to call them, I'm probably going to go to the next guy. So, digitization, to kind of take that bigger picture, can mean a lot of different things, but you've got to apply technology that's going to make it easier for you to do your jobs and make it easier for your customers to interact with you because they want the least path of resistance to work with their service providers.
One of the things about what you were saying got me thinking about how does the process get started? Do we need to have like one early adopter to put the model together to say this is how I put my data together, this is how I actually created the beginning of that process? And I think that's a lot of times it's for breaking the ceiling. It's kind of like, okay, I saw that restaurant chain, Jason's Deli, whatever it is, create this model, and now their employment opportunities, their retention is this much higher, and they've been able to scale this much better. That's one of the things that I would like to pose to each of you is just how does that happen? How did we get to the point where, okay, we know that, but how do we get people to say, okay, this is what I do. This is how I'm going to get there. This is how I'm going to do it. And I think that a lot of times it's just people with resources, but ultimately it's those with daring to do it. Think about Google when it first started. I mean, when I was working in the Vegas market and HVAC contractors weren't on Google at all, I was saying, you need to be there because in another year or less, you're going to have people looking at this market from somewhere else, and they're going to want to find somebody that's an AC contractor. And it was about this time of year, and I'm thinking, well, it's crazy. So you talk to a few people like that, they get on there, they're an early adopter, and their business explodes. So how does that kind of apply to what we're talking about?
I think in many ways the barriers are lower than they've ever been, right? In that, whether it's if you want to play with generative AI and try things, you can do that. Those tools are available to you. Programmers are more accessible than they've ever been. If you want to try building something, I think that we're in a great environment. Large businesses are going to innovate, and they're going to have innovation divisions, and they're going to put out things. And there's always going to be a factor of how does small business compete with large businesses. But small businesses generally can compete with speed, with the ability to try things and experiment quickly. Everybody's in a position to do that to one extent or another.
Yeah, adding to this, it's not, like you said, it's not only AI, right? Even it's like if you want to build, SaaS product or whatever platform, there are existing tools that help you bootstrap it, right? It's like, well, low code, this is the name of like the solution, low code or no code solution that help you build products without actually coding. So like you can prove your business concept, you can build your MVP, so your minimum viable product very easily using existing platforms, just bootstrapping them together. And this, like back in the time, you would have like to do, write Uber app, you would have to probably spend a lot of time and money. Now you can bootstrap it from existing solutions. It's just about, knowledge. It's about, as you said, like dare to try, right? And I'm a believer in like a market, so like Mr. Market, right? But if somebody's figuring out new solutions, if you want to compete with them, we need to think about better solutions.
We can't hear you a little bit. You have to speak a little bit louder.
Sorry, so like I believe in Mr. Market, right? So, but if there is somebody better than you on your market, you want to be better. So you have to look for new solutions. You have to look for new ways to be better, for new ways to innovate. And technology, digitalization is a tool for you. It's not like I wouldn't call it it in itself has no value if you don't know how to use it. But there are people that give you tools to be innovative, to strive, to do new things. But not only AI, but also the slow code, no code solutions. They help you build products just by yourself, right? If I want to start like DoorDash, I don't have to write a platform. I can use some other platforms together, and just like with Excel, I can do it. It just to prove a concept, right? One of the companies that we had like a Polish delegation, as I mentioned, they are good in technology. We had them in the beginning of May. One of the companies, they built like this platform to build SaaS solutions. So it's like a low-code, no-code solution. And in 1 week, they built a platform to organize events in a way that when I organize an event, automatically all my entire network on LinkedIn is notified about this. And also I'm gathering all the information. It's automatically like promoting the event. And they build it just to prove a concept. And like they say that in 1 week, we build it in 1 week. In 2 weeks, we had like 200 users. In the next 2 weeks, we had 3 angel investors wanting to invest in something built completely without code, just on the platform. But this is to show the possibilities of technology nowadays. You can do more and more things just with your idea. And if you have some knowledge, right? Technical knowledge to build things. You don't have to be a programmer. You just need to know how to connect bricks together. But it's education, right?
Probably the point that I'd like to add in there is that if you look 5 years into the crystal ball, which in 5 years ahead of us, it's like if I said 30 years ahead of us 10 years ago. When I look at artificial intelligence, it's only 2 things. The mathematics has been around for hundreds of thousands of years. So what's different? What has changed? Only one data point. It's the data itself. The data is becoming available, and in the United States, we're in a litigation-rich country, if that's a fair statement.
Yes.
That was quick. Everybody
I
responded
thought
to that.
that was rather subtle the way I said my real opinion. But the point that I would like to look at is when I start to talk to very high-level organizations that invest 5, 10 years into the future, the number one question that I'm being asked is, who owns your data and who do you have data dependencies with? So in other words, when you look into the future, your most strategic resource will become your data. And the parallel I'd like to give you is, I don't know if you remember, I'm a little bit older than you, so if you remember the 1990s, you were going, why is there a fax and why is there a photocopy? Look at that, that's a scanner thing. And then you'd say, well, why aren't they all the same thing? It'd be really easy if they were combined. Generative AI is the killer app to merge and combine thousands of job description line items into automated tasks. It's just going to happen. If it doesn't happen to you, you're going to be in a competitive, hard spot. But when you look at all of these accelerating changes we have, the independent factor is going to be your competitive advantage as everything merges and combines. It's going to be the data piece. We've been talking about it for 30 years. I used to teach it in the 1990s. We did not have the layer of technology, which we're calling generative AI today, to merge everything together. But if you look at your long-term strategic advantage, it's going to be your data, which means a business owner has to become a data specialist. My board of directors constantly questions my judgment because I'm my systems administrator. I create the Google accounts for my team. I give them the permissions to the HR software. I take them away. And I manage the data set. Why? Because my most strategic resource is my data. The heart and soul of the company is the human. But the most strategic resource is the data. And I won't get into data labeling here, but please write down those two words and Google it, because there's capital raises being succeeded in the last, what, Matt, 3 to 6 months? There was a $3 billion raise a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, those ones. So if you see the way the investment community is looking at the quality, not even the quantity, but the structure and the ownership of the data, it is the Trojan horse for success.
I'm going to open it up to questions.
I just
Anybody
have
have any-
one
go
more
ahead.
thing. Sorry to cut you off. You asked for a very specific thing that you can do to find out how you can sort of get into this.
Oh, that's great.
One thing you can do is look across your organization, sit down with your employees, sit next to them for a day, find out where they're entering things manually. Doesn't matter where or with what or whatever.
Yep.
And whatever it is,
Data
take
inventory.
the name of the thing that they're doing
Yep.
and search for a vendor that can do that automatically. Because if you're filling out forms as a human, that is not a required job description any longer. That is not a thing that needs to exist for like a couple of decades now. But it's something you run into all the time, and that's a good way to get started. It's just replace people filling out forms. It's amazing how much time of our life we waste filling out forms. So get rid of that first, your margins will go.
Yeah, you said something I wanted to follow up on. So it seems like consulting is going to be a huge piece of the puzzle.
Yep.
It seems like people that know enough to be dangerous, but know enough to know that this is what you should start with, and that sort of thing. How does that develop? How do you get to a point where there's enough people dangerous enough to say, I know where you should start, I know how you should do that? Because you gave an example of that, but there aren't enough people out there to give that example. So how does that happen? And this is more theoretical.
I think that's where we have to depend on guys like you. If you remember the beginning of the real Accenture, which is Arthur Anderson, it came out of a conversation like this, and then it was brought into a Chamber of Commerce-like meeting, and all of a sudden 12 people got together and formed one of the greatest organizations the United States has ever had. So you need a catalyst to bring those expertises together, and if those people gel like glue, you've just created another Boston consulting group or a Las Vegas consulting group. But you need the catalyst that's neutral in the middle to come together, that says, like when we were talking at the last event, we have 150 businesses that have these 65 problems and we don't know where to fix them. Then people like us just gel together, and real consultants are addicted to problem solving.
I think that's exactly right. And so it has been in consulting for almost 30 years. And that is, in the end, the key to that is problem solving. And nobody is an expert on anything until they do it. But you might be an expert on things close to that, to be able to apply those concepts and get together with other people who have expertise in order to figure out a solution that is something new to a problem that people have. But ultimately, because in the end, consulting is about understanding a problem and applying tools, whether it be technology or not, it's not always technology, but tools and expertise, process change, people change in order to make that problem go away. It's always an evolving industry, and that's one thing I love about it, is every situation is a little bit different, and you've got to thrive on that environment.
One of the things I say about the membership of the Chamber's 2,400 members is everybody's an expert at something. And that, I think, is the value of the Chamber, because from this conversation, that is really kind of the thing, is the database of the members that we have and what they know becomes an advisory group in and of itself. And I think, to your point, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I saw here and think you're right. These sort of conversations are the start of that sort of data collection. So the more that we all talk as a group, the more we talk and share ideas, we become that first line of consulting and sharing these ideas with people. Because I guarantee you, every one of you are going to leave here and you're going to come up with something and say, oh, I had no idea that particular thought process can now apply. So that was the goal of this event, and that's why I wanted to do this and open up to any questions, because this is kind of one of those things that everybody would like to know more about.
General question, is ChatGPT, is it agnostic? In other words, my business is in India. I've got 6 different languages being spoken there. And if I tell my people I want them to download ChatGPT and start using it, what's going to happen to them? How is it going to respond to them and their questions, even if they translate it into English?
So on the India side, so I have a company in India, and they are so far ahead of us on that, on usage of ChatGPT. Yeah, they're like years ahead. It's unbelievable how quickly they adopted it. They might actually be using it on you right now. They're that far ahead as a society. Yeah. So there's no harm in saying use it more. Give them a bigger budget is what I would do for usage, because they have to pay the same price we do. But yeah, they're already there. My guess is half your emails you're getting from your group are probably generated by that. That's my guess. If they're anything like my group.
I'll get in trouble for this one, but it all starts with you. When I came into my team on the 24th, the day after ChatGPT came out, I came in, I got the whole company around the world, because I had people in Poland, the Philippines, Costa Rica. I got everybody on ChatGPT, of which some of them were late at night. And I said, okay, folks, watch how fast I'm going to do these 3 painful tasks. And I was getting all kinds of reactions. And I said, now the rule, tomorrow morning, we are no longer speaking English to our clients. We will now address every client in 43 countries in their native language. Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. And the response we got from our clients within weeks, I don't have the words. I've had customers say things to me that brought tears to my eyes, just because they can express themselves in their native language. I'm not talking about fixing their tech problems. I'm talking about being heard and understood. So for me, an organization where every user is not using ChatGPT, I said once before, get rid of Google, use ChatGPT instead, the paid version, not the multiplicity version. But it's top down. It scares me when I see CEOs giving directives blind. You have to use it. So the easiest thing, if it scares the hell out of you, get yourself somebody who knows this inside and out and show it to you privately. Because I can guarantee you, I took one of my board members who's 76 years old, and I spent 6 long hours grilling him on ChatGPT. And now he's teaching every one of his investments, if you're not using ChatGPT, I'm not investing anymore. Because he masters it, and it's his pride to be able to take 4/4 of financial statements, ask one question, and then terrorize the whole company with it.
Rita, do you have a question?
It's more of a comment. I do international real estate, bringing investors to Las Vegas and taking investors outside. So I decided to take all my knowledge of 29 years and put a course and sell it. So I decided to use ChatGPT. It's like, okay, where do I start? And I can tell you that the amount of knowledge, I put together the pain points. Okay, here's all the questions that I usually get. Let's put a course out of it. And all my 29 years of experience, ChatGPT just killed it within a few seconds. It was just amazing. So I'm a big fan of ChatGPT. It helps me a lot. I don't write all my courses, of course, but I think that it's a huge part of my business, and it helps me develop and help other people. Once, of course, I put a little bit more of my knowledge and I edit it a little bit. And also the marketing tool. As a marketing tool, I put once a week, I sit down and I put all my marketing tool and my social media, and it takes me literally like maybe 30 seconds between Canva and ChatGPT. I kill it for the whole week while I'm watching TV. So I think this is amazing. Anyway, as a small business owner.
It's great that you brought up Canva too, because we were just talking about ChatGPT because it's sort of the sexy, well-known thing.
Yeah.
There's Anthropic, there's a bunch of them. But Canva's got a great product
Love
as well.
Canva.
Adobe integrated a lot of the computer vision stuff with their pipeline. So this stuff is so insanely cheap now. Like I used to spend $1 million a week on this stuff like 20 years ago, and now it's like basically free. I mean, it's effectively free. It's like $30 or whatever. It's nothing.
Not only that, now lately I went from like 730 followers to 888 within a week, just integrating Canva and ChatGPT, and I didn't even know what I was doing. It's like, wow, I must be doing something. So just amazing. So just wanted to share this.
No, that's a great example. Jeff?
I have a question. So I was under the impression that ChatGPT isn't necessarily all 100% current. I thought it was lacking. I thought there was a couple of years where like it stopped in 2022 or whatever as far as up to date.
The newest paid version has faster, has more up-to-date
Is
information.
it 100% updated? Is it?
No. It's always going to be like, they said it's got like a week delay, but they're building
Okay,
up.
so they're gonna
They're
roll
spending
it.
like
Okay.
$70 billion on a data center to fix
Okay.
that problem. But it's pretty close to up to date.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you wanted more recent information, perplexity.com, they have an RAG database with the latest information, latest news. So that is a full replacement for Google, basically. Perplexity. The worst name, such a good start, but the worst name.
And if you're a Microsoft person, which I'm warming back up to, if you're a Microsoft person, I installed the entire Microsoft suite driven by the Copilot new version, and it's just mind-boggling. I don't even have to write letters anymore. It takes my emails and turns them into documents. It turns email one-liners into PowerPoint presentations. The thing is I use the word ChatGPT as you would use Kleenex or things like that. You have to find the tool that fits you, but if you're not using this every day, you're losing your competitive edge every day, and it's becoming exponential.
Just to pick up on the Copilot
Just to stay
thing,
polite.
because we use Copilot as well. Very simple thing, just real quick, that it does is meeting minutes.
Yeah.
See meetings, summarizes the meeting.
Zoom doesn't.
It's so helpful.
I have a question. I use ChatGPT probably 10 times a day, but would you guys agree though, on specific things of your industry that you're an expert in, you do have to proofread it. I would say if you're asking it, you're prompting to do certain things, it's not, if it's very specific to your industry, it's probably about 80%. You have to really proof some of it.
That's right. It's not an editor. You're the editor,
Yeah.
right? You now have a staff of
That's your
writers, but
point
you're the
before.
editor.
Right.
Truth.
I mean,
So
you do have to,
if
on
you
certain
could tee
specific
that one
things,
up,
like
that's
general
awesome.
things like taking tasks for a meeting and all that, it's great and all that, but if you get very specific, you do have to proof it for
But
sure.
that's also where the data source matters, because like what Earl was saying with having his own internal one, we do the same thing at KPMG, because then it learns based upon your data, what you like to do.
And what
Relax,
Earl
right?
gave me a good tip for everybody, and I don't know, I'm still testing it, Last time I saw Earl, he talks to ChatGPT like the movie Her, so he gets a personal relation. And I've been testing it since we met.
And it
2 weeks,
works.
And it's getting better. So the more
It's
you treat the AI
one of
like
my
a
best
friend
friends.
and you talk to it,
No, I'm serious. It's one of my best friends. Because you said the magic word. You said 80%. Remember? And you said you were the editor.
Yeah.
Find anybody that can do
Yeah.
your first draft at 80% in your organization.
I agree.
Anyone.
I agree.
Even your trusted
I'm
number
just saying,
2.
don't trust it totally, completely.
that's right.
Do you
That's all.
trust anything totally?
Good.
What about standards that will that you can say that the data is clean, especially when you're going into like medical or banking? There's got to be some type of standard that's widely accepted. Say this is clean data that we can now feed into
It's
the
one
model.
part where I see with medical in particular that I could see organizations that have credibility, a Mayo Clinic, for example, putting out data sources that are leveraged, because certainly we want to make sure that clinical decisions have some validity to them, and they're not based on what random people posted on the internet, right? And so that's, I think, where data sources, and they're going to be different for different industries, and different needs, and different levels of complexity to making sure that those are valid data sources. But I do see trusted companies putting out trusted large language models that contain data that have a brand behind them that you can appreciate in targeted areas.
And that's a hard question, because when we talk about data standards at a federal level, nobody wants to talk about it because your data source is your competitive edge. Your data labeling is your precision of your data. So if we go to a standard, the well-established gorillas, they are not having that advantage anymore. So that's where I think, over and above AI, learning about data standardization, data structure, data labeling, it has to become your passion, because that's what you're going to build your competitive edge upon. That make sense?
And we don't want to talk about IP issues much, but depending on how certain court cases end up going over time, you might find that these public databases have to pull back on intellectual property that they're using, and it will create more of a market for that third-party data.
Very hard to police. It's very, very hard to police.
Yeah, I would think that these companies that are aggregating this data, and they actually have to put themselves in a position where if you're going to use it, their reputation's on the line. They can't be put in a position where their data is not accurate, because what does that do to their reputation? And if they've been around 30, 40, 50 years, and this data's come together like Microsoft, can you trust that data? And maybe you can because of brand. But what happens if that data doesn't match the brand that they built? And that's, I think, the crossover with IP, and it's also the crossover with the litigation that's going on, is there's a lot of ambiguity, but anybody out of the blue, you could come to them and say, you know what, I don't trust your data. I don't trust yours, I don't trust yours, I don't trust yours. And what does that do to the market? And I think that that's another part of it, is you really have to wade into it if you're somebody that has the data, and you make sure that it matches what your reputation is.
And we mostly talked about generative here because it's like it's not a hot topic. But the truth is there are many different types of machine learning algorithms, and they're used for a lot of different types of things. And so your business might not be as impacted by Gen AI as it is computer vision or whatever it may be. And so I think you also need to look at the type of data you have and the outcome you're looking to achieve, and find a partner that can help you deploy to that outcome versus just sort of the new hotness, basically.
Anyone else?
I have a question. So I have a question just in general for the group. What is your opinion, or what do you foresee happening as far as the negative impacts? Because this changes so quickly, what does this mean for job elimination? We say that, humans are the heart and soul of a business, but then we're also saying, if you're doing data entry or form entry, find a software that can do that. But what does that mean for the people who don't have a PhD in computer science? What does that mean for the 55-year-old who's worked in, medical billing, and they have 10 years left in their career, and their job goes away overnight? What does it mean for the kid with autism who works the counter at McDonald's, and they're getting replaced with a computer? What do you guys think is a solution to make sure that we're in front of creating mass unemployment for not highly skilled labor pools?
In the short term, that I think that the longer terms are harder. But we've been through many technology changes, whether it be the internet or the mobile phone or a variety of other things that have eliminated jobs. What happens is that it tends to be jobs adjust. It tends to be that that people who embrace these technologies find ways to make their jobs more efficient, thrive in those environments, and they just become part of the fabric of how we do things. And if you look at, the internet is definitely like that. Email is definitely like that. There was a time at which knowing how to use email was a skill. Nobody's hiring you because you know how to use email. But with AI, knowing how to incorporate it into your job right now could be a valuable thing that the employers appreciate and makes it so they realize you can do more. I think certain jobs will be more impacted than others, as has happened with all these technology shifts. But society does a good job of adjusting to it. I think overall, when you look at eliminating more of these repetitive tasks, it's about freeing up time for people to do more creative tasks.
I think the other thing too is the U.S. is really bad historically at retraining. It's not like a strong suit of our country. And so, but there is actually quite a bit of money to be deployed into retraining and into education in that way. And so I think it's going to have to be a combination of public and private, because sort of like the Industrial Revolution occurred, right? And you didn't need 10-year-olds working at factories anymore. Like that was upside, right? So 10-year-olds could go back to school, which by the way wasn't super common during the Industrial Revolution. So I think there's a lot of opportunities like that, but I think as a public good, we should incentivize training programs. As a private good, we have every responsibility to shareholders to increase margin.
And tied to that is also education right now. I mean, this is one thing I have a 14-year-old, 12-year-old, and 8-year-old. And there's always the question of, should they be allowed to use ChatGPT or whatever to help them with their homework? These are tools that are available in the marketplace. It's no different than when people used to talk about using encyclopedias to help you to write an essay. Of course, if they just give the output from it and don't edit it just like a person in the workplace, they're going to have a problem. But they need to learn how to use these tools, because that's what's going to make them effective in the workplace when they get to that age.
And I think like also using the technologies getting easier, right? It's not like many years ago, like when we had to learn how to operate like Excel or other software. Right now, these tools are more accessible. They are not like something that is, you have to have a PhD. If you can read or write, right? You can communicate. You can set it up. You can work with it. So like the entry barrier to the technology is getting lower, but it also, as you said, like it eliminates some of the jobs. But I think technology as a whole is getting more accessible than tools.
Great example of that to bring it down to, I think everybody can relate. If you go to Taco Bell, if you go to McDonald's, if you go to California Fish Grill, a lot of times they're having you order on a kiosk. And what I have witnessed is that your service increases, because the amount of people now that don't have to stand at the register and take an order can now be there to help fulfill the order and speed up service. And the other thing about it is, from a business owner standpoint, if you're running the back of the house, you can do more on the back of the house from an integration with your QuickBooks, for example, that will help you create efficiencies, but you're not actually having that labor cost impacting them. So you really have a lot of ways to maximize that. And it's not replacing an individual, it's just reassigning them to an opportunity that you maybe from a bandwidth standpoint, from a payroll ability, you can't afford.
And important to know about that too is that some of those kiosks got put in place because they couldn't find people to work those jobs, right? That labor shortages have driven technology change as well, and it continues to be the case that a lot of people need people to do these jobs. The technology is not replacing people because there's nobody to do those jobs in many of these cases.
Jobs are not lost. They're transformed.
Yes.
It's the human that does not embrace the transformation out of fear, usually, where the person gets lost. But if you look at the stock market statistics, if you look at job creation, we are right now in the inflection point of one of the greatest job creation moments in history, because the AI revolution will outweigh the industrial revolution, the technology revolution, the communications revolution. It is the most exciting moment in history if you want my opinion. And for you folks, it boils down to two words that you have to learn to be at the top of this. And I don't like the words, but we got to use them. They're called prompt engineering. In other words, you learn how to find the answer smarter, faster, and more precise than the person next to you, which means your value goes up and theirs go down. In 1995, I was teaching the Supreme Court of Canada judges how to search on Alta Vista. And it changed the way they worked fundamentally because they learned how to use words to search. We're right back there in 1995, but on steroids. So how you learn to break down a question. Have you noticed most communication problems have nothing to do with the answer? You're always in the doghouse or on the couch because of the way you ask the question the wrong way? Well, now in the AI world, that is infinitely more important. Invest in prompt engineering. It will change fundamentally your productivity overnight.
Any other questions?
Do you see opportunities with like IBM Watson and the other models besides GPT?
Yeah, I mean, since the world was talking about it kind of generically with that term, it's becoming like, you know, saying you're going to FedEx something or use a Kleenex, right? But all of these, there's a lot of different companies putting out different technologies, both big companies and small companies. And so I don't think it's necessarily about any one solution, or is about this category of solution.
Are you with IBM before I answer this?
No, I was playing around with Watson.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, because I did a partnership with some of our investors that are pretty big, and I think you guys have partnerships. You got to be careful. Careful with me. Okay, good. Oh, sorry. All right. So, if you have $100 million that you're going to deploy, and you're going to deploy it to replace headcount or increase profit margin, whatever you're going to do, whatever the outcome you're trying to achieve, you can probably talk to IBM about Watson, and you might get sort of a midpoint accuracy out of that system. And it's going to cost you $100. And so you don't have to do that anymore. That's the trouble at IBM right now, is that they no longer represent a sufficient value to cover their costs of that model. Now you can just you can download Notion for free and get this, right? Get the level that they have actually at Watson processing statements, which is where they started. So it just doesn't cost anything anymore. And companies like IBM are left holding the bag on a really expensive R&D process that was basically lit up by a bunch of mid-20s people from Silicon Valley who raised next to no money. And so that's what we're talking about. It's all really cheap and easy to use. You're using Canva, AI to generate imagery. It's so cheap now. So IBM's got to work really hard to sell Watson, just like they got to work really hard to sell those mainframes that they're still selling to insurance companies. Same problem. So long as no one from IBM's in the room, that's my opinion on IBM.
Anyone else? Well, I think, one more.
How does a business keep their information private so that the public doesn't use it?
Yeah, very carefully.
Yeah, so that's why you have to use on-prem private AIs, right? They are built on Watson, Llama, or other tools, but can be on your server, in your office, in your building, and you don't share data then, right? It's all your private network.
The reason why I ask that question that way is usually if I access the system, chat bots and whatever, that system needs to have my information too to be able to look at it.
Right.
Once it has that information, that's not outside the cloud, right? Outside the cloud or whatever. Now, how do I limit that? Or are you saying, like OpenGPT, I can install inside on my machine?
You can have your own private RAGs, you can have your own private AIs, but have no access to the internet. We don't get data, or we don't send data to the internet. If you use Copilot, ChatGPT, all that data goes to Microsoft, that goes to OpenAI, right? So they have that data. So if you have crucial data, like that's like one limitation of like legal companies, right? They don't want to use it. They are, they have a lot of like people working for them to enter data, but they don't want to use AI because they don't want to share the data with the internet, so to say, right? Because if you send to cloud, you don't really know what's going on with that. That's why you can have private AI, as you have, right? Earl has like a similar idea on premise.
But just to be clear, it's probably not going to be as good for you. So just to be clear. And then the second piece is your data probably isn't as valuable as you think in reality. But the way to handle that is to anonymize what you send. So like strip customer names, strip supplier names, whatever you want to do, before you send it, and then you can speak and you can have a dialogue with the system in terms of labels. So as you're not saying like, I work with 3M or I work with IBM or something like that, it's more anonymized.
Well, I just thought it was interesting. I've used ChatGPT for a long time, and every now and again you'll get something back. The response is, I hope that company knows that their data is out there. And then you think, oh, if I'm getting someone else's data, are they getting my data?
Yeah, for sure. If they're buying from the right people, they are. If they're buying from the credit card companies, which they do, that's sort of where they spend a lot of their capital. That's where Palantir spends a lot of its capital, as an example, buying private data sets. So,
Joe, real quick, copyright. If you create something with, chat, is that something that you can copyright? I know you're not.
I'm hiding from that.
we're at the sure give it a go stage.
That's awesome.
Stephen has created some great templates for what we do, right, for our business. And I said, we should copyright that. And he says, you can't, dear.
My answer would be it's a great time to be an IP lawyer. So
That's the way I do it.
Yeah,
I create stuff with DALL-E every day.
Right.
And I just stick a copyright, like the little C on it, copy paste it, and send it away. If I don't get an email back, well, hey, cool. Wild West.
Can you copyright your process? Is that?
Ask Matt.
No, you can't do that
It's a
either.
great time to give it
Well,
a go.
you'd be patenting the process. But no, once it's out there, it's copyrighted anyway. So it's up to somebody else to claim that you violated their intellectual property. And so it's an beg for forgiveness sort of situation on this stuff. I think the companies that are making billions of dollars off of it have to start to get a little bit more buttoned up, right? Which is why they license third-party data sources and things like that. But you as the user, it's not actually yours anyways. As soon as they print it to the screen, they own it. It's just like an ebook. You don't own any of the digital assets that you've paid for and downloaded at your house. Somebody else owns those. They can take them away whenever they want. Same thing with this sort of data. So I'd say, like, who cares? Just put it out there. If somebody claims it's theirs, take it down. Because there's so much content that you can create with this stuff. You're definitely begging for forgiveness in this environment now. And yeah, IP attorneys are going to make a bundle just like they do at every single stage. Yeah.
From a personal standpoint, from privacy, we've talked about that as a community and society for quite some time, whether it's the phones or whether it's inadvertently collecting data, go all the way back to internet usage when they would track your behavior and that sort of thing. So when they're collecting your data and you don't know it, and they're aggregating it and putting it together, like say they're doing a sample study of Las Vegas, and they're looking at how people are interacting with gaming or searching for casinos and all that. Is there a crossover? Is there kind of a thing like we no longer need to worry so much about that because that information is aggregated?
Well, remember when we were kids, there were these things called phone books? Give away everyone's phone book address. It's just sort of like we went through a trough where certain things were a lot more worrying than they ever were when we were younger. And now I think we're on the other side. It's sort of like the end of Dr. Strangelove. At a certain point, you have to stop worrying and love the bomb, I think, on these topics.
The casino industry, you just threw the rock out there. I was trying to keep my mouth shut, but there's a lot of mysticism around the casino industry about our competitor across the street. Everybody has the same data. They have the same machines, they have the same table games. What's different? The experience. Why do you need AI tools to learn who the customer is, to give them the experience that makes them feel seen, heard, understood, appreciated, and important. Because everyone has the same data. It's crazy how nobody wants to share data to get the money launderers out of Las Vegas. It's crazy how they don't want to share the data to keep people from getting addicted. Because they think it's going to hurt their marketing programs. Roll eyes and vomit.
Anyone else? All right, I appreciate you guys all coming. This is something that I like to do every couple of months, and it's always something that's got an edge where people want to know more about it, but they don't quite know what to ask or they don't quite know where to find the information. And this is something that we've all kind of talked about privately amongst each other, is that Vegas is getting to that point where there's so much information, there's so many people coming from somewhere else. Everybody's kind of getting together and sharing ideas, but we want to start tying it together, and we think the chamber is a good place to do that. Because with over 2,000 members and people constantly moving here. When I moved here in 2005, there was a net positive amount of people. I think it was 7,300 people a month moving here. And I think that, I don't know what the number is these days, but it's probably closer to 10,000. And with that being said, it's a lot more international flavor now. It's a lot more regional. When I talk to companies, I would say every month I probably talked about 10 companies coming here from California or the East Coast or something, because it's a business-friendly state. And that's a first attraction, but then they bring with them the technologies. Logistics next to gaming and hospitality is probably one of the biggest things here. And a lot of that, the logistics and the efficiencies of trucking and so forth, that's a big part of it. So there's a big need for that growth, and I think the underswell of businesses in the community need to come to that table and be able to offer the services, because that's the other side, is they want to get involved in the community. They don't know what that means, but they meet an individual business owner and they start talking about the community, and hey, I've lived here for 20 years, I'd love to talk to you more about this or that. Immediately it's a connectivity thing. So it's old school connectivity, but it's new school technology, and if you put the two together, and especially in this world where you're taking data and you're taking experiences and marrying them together, I think it's only going to benefit Vegas more. So thank you guys. Appreciate it.